Tributes have been paid to legendary and iconic fashion designer Patti Bell following her death. With business partner Jane Kahn, Bell opened the Kahn Bell boutique in Birmingham in 1976. Together, they created a style that would be at the center of the punk and new romantic scene in the city and beyond. In the 1980s, she was probably the most important person in Birmingham in terms of culture, said photographer Richard Davis, who, along with hundreds of others, frequented her shop on her street. Songwriter and singer Maggie Katie Monde said, "They would make absolutely brilliant fantasy creations, and everybody used to flock to that shop. It was the place to hang out with the most wonderful characters, and Patti was always so warm, friendly, and funny. The clothes they produced were exquisite," she added. She dressed so many of the bands. Responsible for styling Duran Duran in the band's early days, Kahn Bell went on to work with many other musicians. "I was in two Birmingham bands that had chart success, Swan's Way and Scarlet Fantastic, and I wore many of her clothes on TV shows and in fashion shoots," said Mrs. DeMonde. Everybody got their clothes from there. They really were ahead of their time. Often seen at Birmingham's Rum Runner Club External, known as the birthplace of Duran Duran. The party was always with Patti, she added. "Half the people in there would be wearing Kahn Bell designs," said Mrs. DeMonde. People always used to say she was the queen bee of the Birmingham scene, and she had such a fantastic entourage, you know? They looked like a bunch of peacocks. The music scene in the city at that time was great, she added, with bands such as UB 40, Dexys, and Steel Pulse just hanging out together. And, you know, they were bleak times. There was the Thatcher regime, Handsworth riots, but I think to fight against it, people would just dress up, she said. It was just so exciting. The musician's late brother, Paul Edmond, had captured images of Bell in the shop, iconizing her with so many amazing photographs, explained Mrs. DeMonde. Still a teenager and living just 2 doors down from the designer, he was always on the scene, she said. A series of 3 books containing his photography is set to be published later this year. So Patti's legacy is going to go on. And also his legacy in all of these amazing photos, she said. After opening the shop in 1976, Kahn and Bell eventually went their separate ways in the 1980s. Bell would also sell clothes at the Great Gear Market on Kings Road, London, and would later have a stall at Birmingham's Rag Market. Art photographer Gary Lindsay Moore External was 17 in 1977, and as a fledgling little punk, remembers making the momentous journey to Kahn and Bell. It was not that easy to go and buy punk gear, and to actually have a shop in Birmingham that sold all these things that you could only see as drawings in the back of the New Musical Express was amazing, he explained. Bell had always been so accepting and encouraging, he said. If you felt like a bit of a freak or a weirdo, which is what I did when I was 17, it was great to realize that there was this quite cool scene that you could be part of. He described the outlet as being like the magical costume shop in the children's series Mr. Bean. You know, when you walk through the doors, your life can change. And yeah, it really did, he said. She just helped find the me in me. The partnership of the 2 designers was just incredible, he said. They were just so inventive, and they lived it. They were a walking advertisement for Kahn and Bell wherever they were. Their effect on the fashion scene at the time was just huge, he added, influencing the look of artists such as Sig Sigismund, Boy George, Bucks Fizz, Fashion, and Shock. People have often said that they were the Vivienne Westwood and Zandra Rhodes of Birmingham, which I think is a pretty damn good accolade, is it not? He added. An exhibition of his photographs inspired by Kahn and Bell is currently on display at the Birmingham Back-to-Backs, close to the original Hearst Street shop, featuring original garments. They also include models that have a direct connection to the shop, such as influential drag artist Twiggy, who worked there as a teenager. Also on show is an original tartan jacket, initially valued on BBC's Antiques Roadshow at PS 400 to 600. Apart from anything else, Patti was just the most amazing company, added Mr. Lindsay Moore. She was very witty, she was just so inclusive, and people really gravitated towards her. That's what she meant to me. Just an absolutely wonderful woman. Photographer Richard Davis was also a Kahn Bell regular. Growing up in 1980s Birmingham, the shop meant you could be different, feel at home, and it was a safe environment, he said. It's only now you realize it absolutely shaped who I was in the 1980s. He said it was significant that Bell had stayed in the city, contributing to a really good scene for people. All of us growing up then, the new romantic scene, ex-punks, we've all really got so much to thank her for, the photographer said. For those who knew her and for those who lived through that time in Birmingham, she was absolutely iconic, massive. We didn't have many big characters who would shout out about the identity of the city. That's why Patti was so important. Probably one of the most important people in Birmingham in terms of culture, I would say. The city had lost a piece of its musical and cultural identity, said Lyle Bignon, music consultant and nighttime economy ambassador. The designer and visionary who married Birmingham rock royalty Steve Gibbons was rock and roll through and through. My sincere and heartfelt condolences go out to Steve, her sons John, Dylan, and Jake and Patty's wider family, as well as their many friends and fans.